Well, good afternoon and happy Saturday to you. Dr. Preston Ray Winfrey here. How in the world on today are you doing? I hope and pray that you are doing well, that your week has been a great week. And I'm certain that there's a whole lot going on this week for you. But isn't that just all part of life? There's always something going on, something more for us to do. And then there are those things that we planned to do that we didn't quite complete. And again, that's part of life. There's always unfinished work, which sometimes keeps us moving forward, saying, well, I didn't do it today, I'll get it later. You know, it's sort of like if at first you don't succeed, you try again and you keep working on it, you keep working on it. It's like an elephant. Someone wanted to know, how do you eat an elephant as big as it is? Well, someone came up and said, one bite at a time. And so it makes pretty good sense. Trust that life is good, sweet, that you're doing what you should be doing. Stay healthy, keep your mind sharp, and all of those things. There's a passage of scripture that I'll refer to a little later on that talks about unity and the need for us to work together and do those things that will help one another. And the truth is, in helping others, you do help yourself. So today's talk, the subject is using your pieces to complete the puzzle. Well, when I'm talking about your pieces, I'm talking primarily about using your pieces of the puzzle to complete the puzzle. You know, life is really one big puzzle with so many pieces. And the pieces, they vary in size. At some point, you know, we get a glimpse, get some idea of what the total picture look like. We see sometimes the picture at a glance. And unfortunately, we don't get the opportunity to just glare at the big picture. Sometimes it's just for a fleeting moment. But the ideal is get it and lock it in your mind and understand that this is a broad picture. It's a broad painting, right? And then after you've seen it, now the work starts. But there's usually one hindrance to completing the stages of this puzzle, you know, to complete it. You know, you don't complete it. You complete it in stages or phases. You know, if you've ever worked a puzzle, a board puzzle, desk puzzle, you know that most times, and depending on how many pieces you have, you don't do it all at one sitting. You do it in phases. You know, some people work on them. They say, you know, I'll do so much each day. I'll do so many hours working on it. I'll leave it, go on to something else, and I'll get back to it. And there's some people who say, you know what, I'm just going to discipline myself and I'm going to do it all. Again, depending on how many pieces you're dealing with, because it can be mind-boggling depending on those number of pieces you have. You know, when the pieces are so large, it doesn't take long. But when you have tiny pieces, mixed sizes, then it's a little bit more to it. You have to find the pieces and you have to go back in your mind and say, wait a minute, what does the big picture look like, right? So the steps, in terms of completing these steps and stages and phases, it takes time. But the hindrance comes when our pieces are being held back. You know, sometimes we hold back the pieces for a lack of knowledge. You know, we don't have all the information that we need. And so we hold back sometimes because of misinformation that we've been given. You know, I think about people in life who are angry with other people because of someone else who's angry with them. People who say, well, I'm not speaking to you because of something that you went through, something that you've experienced in life. And so these are my ace boon coons, and so we're all together. And what's unfortunate about that is I think they miss an opportunity to find out things for themselves. And you know, it's true in life, you have to learn people for yourself. You cannot always go along with everyone else's program. Case in point, let's say I'm going to just use my wife. I don't think she'll get angry with me. Besides, she's not here right now, so I'm going to be bold and I'm going to be courageous. I'm going to say, my wife, before we married, she had some enemies, and she told me, well, I'm not speaking to them, so don't you speak to them. Well, unfortunately, that wasn't um, my experience. And so whoever her enemies were are not automatically my enemies just because we hooked up. I had to be mature enough to find out about the person and learn that person. And so to that end, I have many friends and family and associates who may have issues with someone that I do not have issues with. And somehow both sides want to convince me that I should do and think and feel differently. But I have to be persuaded within my own heart what is best for me. So misinformation sometimes, miseducation, you know. Sometimes we're miseducated and we go based on what we were told, what we were taught. And if we don't ever get around to doing our own investigating and searching, then we can miss many opportunities. And we're talking about getting this puzzle completed, and especially in phases. Then a third reason I believe that we hold back is because of being blind. We don't see the true benefit. We don't see the value. We don't understand the roles that we could play in the betterment of any given situation. You know, it's been said over the years, people can't see the forest because the trees are in the way. Duh, trees are part of the forest, right? So, you know, another saying is people cut off their own nose to spite their face. Well, you cut your nose off, you're not going to be able to breathe, and you will have an early demise. So it calls for maturity, that I move to a place, move to a point where I say, I don't know, but if I'm going to be intelligent, I need to come into knowing. And perhaps I was fed some incorrect information, or some information that would poison my mind, my heart towards others. Well, maturity says, excuse me, you have to find out people for yourself, have your own experiences. I can recall in a first church where I went to serve as pastor, there was some who said, you know, you got to watch out for this, you have to watch that one, you have to do this. And the same with the second church that I've had the opportunity to serve as pastor. And incidentally, I'm still there. But I've also had those who said, you know, watch out for this, watch out for that one. But I chose to find out for myself. While I was appreciative for the heads up, but there were some things I had to find out. And one of the things I found out was certain ones had certain issues with others. And so I could not allow that to be part of my testimony. I needed to be able to think clearly and see, which is the third thing is we talked about being blind. We have to be able to see the entire picture. And sometimes you can be so close to a situation that you're unable to read it for what it is and see it for what it is. And it's about judgment, right? That you want to accurately judge a situation. And in order to do it and do it fairly, sometimes it becomes necessary for me to back up so that I can see it. It will come into focus. Sometimes when it's so close to your face, you're unable to see it. So we must be intentional then in our search to help complete the puzzles in life. And listen, in life, there are countless puzzles. You know, I wish perhaps that there was just one puzzle, but in reality, there are many puzzles. There are family puzzles. There are community puzzles. There are marketplace puzzles. The puzzles don't end. And we have pieces to each of those puzzles. You know, how do I make my relationship correct? Well, I have to use and utilize correctly the pieces I have. How do I make the puzzle correct as it relates to my job? Well, I can't keep going around saying, you know, boss is no good, you know, and especially after, you know, I've gone to 5, 6 different jobs, you know, in the same year, and it's always the boss. Perhaps I am not bringing to the table, to the board, to the puzzle, my pieces, and I need to be honest with myself. So we must be intentional in our search to help complete the puzzles in life. And now this requires, first of all, observation and recalling what the big picture looks like. You know, you have to observe, you have to be observant. You know, how big was this picture? And to think that I can just, you know, a few little pieces, no, 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 no. I have to be observant, and I must recall what the big picture is. What was this picture supposed to, what is this picture? And what will these pieces do? Well, if the pieces all come together, we're going to get the whole big picture, right? Second thing is I have to refuse to compete with others. You know, so much of what we do in life, we spend a lot of time competing. You know, who's going to be first? Who's going to be on top? Who's going to get the credit? Who's going to get the pats on the back? You know, but if you see the whole picture, maybe we should all be able to get along, get together, make our contributions, and make this thing work. And after it's all said and done, if we all begin to if we refuse to compete with each other and put on our thinking caps and say, hey, in order for this thing to work, in order for this picture to be made complete, we all must do our share. Now, there are those who have pieces of the puzzle. There possibly one person may only have one piece, you know, and no matter how you think, you cannot be impatient. You have to wait on others to bring their pieces, because your piece, if your piece is in the center of the puzzle and the other pieces have not yet met the center, it's not going to work. You're going to have to just hold on to your piece, or if you're sure that that piece goes in that particular spot, then place it there as others bring in theirs. And then you're going to have to learn the art of waiting patiently for others to give theirs. Now, there are others who may have 2 or 3 pieces. There's some who are equipped to handle 10, 15 pieces of the same puzzle. But again, it's time consuming, and you have to be patient and allow those persons to put those pieces together. Sometimes the pieces I have are not consecutive pieces, right? Sometimes I may have 2 pieces that may fit perfectly. Oh, great. But then my other pieces, I'm like, these are not fitting together. And so I have to wait on the next person, wait on someone else who will bring their pieces of the same puzzle to the table. And so we must refuse to compete. But then thirdly, I must be willing to complement, right? In order to complete this thing, I have to complement and cooperate, complement and cooperate. You know, are you grateful when others have pieces of the puzzle? Or are you convinced that what I have is going to complete the puzzle? Well, the reality is, you know, that all that you have and as much as you have is not going to complete the whole puzzle. Because when the Lord created us, He put us here so that we would complement each other. You remember in the book of Genesis, Cain got angry with his brother Abel, and he murdered his brother. Long story short, he murdered his brother because he couldn't handle the fact that God rejected his sacrifice and accepted his brother's. And he was so upset about that he just went and murdered his brother. And we do the same things today, right? There are so many incidents in the Bible and the scriptures that teach us and show us how when we don't work together, then we will end up competing. And then when we compete, nobody wins. So I must be willing to complement and cooperate. And the bottom line is this: when I do my part, when I bring my parts of the puzzle for the assembling, and others bring theirs, it's going to be a whole lot easier to figure this thing out. Someone said 4 eyes are better than 2, right? So in other words, where there's unity, there is strength. It kind of sounds like scripture, right? Yeah, when people come together, when people have a mind to work, things will work out. Proverbs 27 and verse 17, and I mentioned this at the top of this inspirational talk, that it says this: as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Isn't that precious? Listen, that's all we do. We just sharpen each other. You know, the one can't say, well, I'm just getting sharpened. No, because as you sharpen it, as you wipe it, as you slide it on that piece of iron, both get sharpened simultaneously. And I believe that is the way the Lord intended for us to live in unity, live in fellowship with one another. Can 2 walk together, says Amos, I believe. Except they agree, the answer is no. They cannot walk together. They must come into some sort of agreement. And I'm here to tell you that life can be so much sweeter when people learn how to come together for a common cause. Come together. It doesn't have to be big I and little you, but whatever role you play. There's a song that says, brighten the corner where you are. You know, never mind about doing the whole room. Maybe your light that you have isn't bright enough to illuminate the entire room. But use what you have. Utilize what's in your possession. And you'll be amazed when all of these little lights come together. Oh, what a difference it makes. I just had a thought, the old Christmas lights, when those miniature lights, when one went out many years ago, they all went out. And you had to go through one by one to try and figure out which light was a bad light. And it was so time consuming. It was very taxing. And then once you found the one light that was out and you plugged in a new light, all of the lights came on. And the puzzles in life are that way. The puzzle is not complete until we all come into perfect unity, until we all come together. And so whoever this message is for, I hope that it will bless you and that you will in turn be a blessing to someone else. Share it. That's the way life should be. That's the way the Lord intended for us to be. He does not want us to be as Cain, when God asked Cain, "Where's your brother?" And Cain came back at him like, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Cain really had some big issues going on. And the answer was, yes, you are your brother's keeper. And whether you tell me or not, I know where your brother is, because you murdered him and his blood is crying out to me now. And as a result, you're going to pay a hefty price for that. And so use your pieces of the puzzle to complete the puzzle. And remember, the puzzle is completed in stages, in phases. And so you can get one piece of it, you can get half of it, you can say, okay, well, this puzzle is complete, I'm done. No, that's just one of many puzzles that you have been given pieces to. So what is your gift? What is your talent today? What is your ability? What knowledge do you have where you can make the situation better? Then whatever you do, the Word of God says, do it heartily, not unto man, but do it heartily unto God. And God is the one who will reward you. God is the one who will bless you. It's God who loved us so that in the fullness of time sent his only begotten Son into the world, gave his life as a ransom. He was buried in a tomb and he stayed there. But on the third day, he arose victoriously with all power in his hand. And one sweet day, that same Jesus is going to return for those who love him. Listen, my time is up. I'm going to get out of here. But listen, use the pieces of the puzzle you have to glorify the Lord. Because after all, that's who gave you those pieces. Use them for his glory, and you will be amazed how much sweeter your life will be. You will be amazed at how the puzzles in life will come together simply because you put your pieces down at the right time in the right spot. All right, this is Dr. Winfrey saying I love you. May the Lord bless you. A real good. Listen, on tomorrow, we're going to be in our worship service at that place we call Pioneer, 315 East 161st Place in South Holland, Illinois. And guess what? We have an outing on tomorrow. We'll be at the New Friendship Baptist Church. They're in Chicago, 844 West on 71st Street. And that's going to be for their 11 o'clock service. So those of you who can and will, join us at either location. Pioneer at 9 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time and New Friendship at 11. Until next time we hook up, meet, see each other, view each other, visit, may the Lord bless you real good. Thank you for joining me. Have a marvelous rest of the weekend and a great week on next week. And that's Brother Ralph Lofton in the background playing.